We're ready to go.
Okay. Today we're going to work on a little Poulan Wild Thing 40cc 18-inch chainsaw that I picked up yesterday. The owner claims that the primer bulb is out and that's the only thing wrong with it, but we've heard that story before. We did look inside. We took the spark plug out and used the camera to look inside the motor, and the motor looked pretty good inside. It didn't show any unusual wear or anything, and it doesn't look like they put regular gas in it. So let's go ahead and start off by replacing the primer bulb and see what we've got. Okay, first thing we'll do is pull the case apart. Now, I already know that this tool won't reach this one. And one of the little secrets of chainsaws that the dealers don't talk about is, you see these two? Virtually everything that you find these two levers on, this will always be blue and the switch will always be red. It's usually got the same motor. Doesn't really matter what it says on the outside. You'll find the same motor on the inside almost every time. And that's part of the reason these things appear so easy to take apart. It's not that they are, it's just they've all got the same motor, and you get a lot of practice doing the same one. Let me grab a magnet. There we go. Always use a magnet so we don't lose the screws. There's nothing worse than having to put something together and not knowing where all the screws are. And that's another one, and one more screw, and that whole side should come apart. I'm sure you noticed the pull spring's hanging down a little bit. We're going to go ahead and do that while we're at it. And that's how you get to the primer bulb on one of these. So we'll go ahead and pull that apart. And in just a second, it's just a center bolt to take it off. Let's do the primer bulb. There we go. Yep, I'd say offhand we're doing fuel lines today. That one just breaks apart in your hand. Okay, let's go ahead and pull the carburetor off, because it's going to be nothing but in the way. Looks like we need a new air filter. And just like every time, they told me, I swear, the only thing it needs is a pump. Replace that primer bulb and it'll be fine. Up, one more. There we go. We'll get that out of the way. Now, sometimes we can get lucky with this linkage and not have to break it in half. And this is one of those times. Put the linkage right there. And remember, if you're doing something like this, I know I say this every time, but make sure you take pictures first. Because it's a lot easier to remember if you've got a picture of what you just did. Yeah, look at that. It's just coming apart in my hand. That is definitely some bad fuel line. Oh, and there's the other side of the fuel line. That is what you might call terrible. Okay. And I'm kind of betting the carburetor is probably going to be a basket case too. We'll do the fuel lines first and crank her up and see what we've got. Now I'm just going in now and fishing old fuel lines out. Interesting enough, looking down in here, I do not see a fuel filter. So I don't know how this thing was running. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to give this tank a bath before we leave. Okay, and there's the fuel line that matches up to what we've got. And whenever you're doing fuel line, the smaller the fuel line is, the more difficult it is to do. This is pretty little fuel line, so it's going to be pretty entertaining. Shove that through the hole. Come on, buddy. Where you at? I know you're there someplace. See what we're doing is we're feeding the wire through the hole here. There you go, kind of hard to see. There you go. See, we're shoving the wire down through that hole. And we're fishing it out. Here's the wire right here. And we're fishing it out through this hole here. We're trying to anyway. I can see it, but I can't quite get it to turn at the angle I want it to turn at. But when you're doing fuel lines, if you don't get it the very first time, that just means you're normal. If you watch a video where a guy hits it the first time, even one of my videos, I either got lucky or I edited it. I usually won't edit out the little mistakes like that, so that just means I got lucky on that one. Okay, now it's sticking out right here. And we've got our little point that we grinded down with our grinder to make it super pointy. So now we're going to put a taper on this and pull it back through. You want to make sure you make a relatively long taper, because when you're pulling it through the hole, it might fight you a little bit. Keep in mind when you're pulling it back through the hole that you've got a little hook on the end here. So you don't want to snag it. You want to push the wire the other direction so it doesn't snag while you're doing it. We get tangled up in the carb linkage. And there we have it. Now we can see the end of the fuel wire. Now we'll reach in here. And grab it and give it a tug. Up. And it broke. That might be sticking through enough where I can reach it. Yep, we got it. And there's line number 1. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put a fuel filter on this and pull it the rest of the way in. Okay, now on the return side, we're going to use a slightly smaller line. just because we've got a smaller hole. Pretty common on chainsaws. On weed eaters, 95% of the time it's going to be the same line on either side. The important part is that it fits snugly. That way gas won't leak through the hole. And also, of course, that it fits on the carburetor holes, and in this case, the primer hole. Okay. Come on, buddy. There you go. And she's fighting me pretty good, so I'm pretty comfortable with that. I'll put that on the long side of the primer bulb. When you're putting the lines on, you want to make sure they go all the way on, so that over time, when they overheat and everything, they don't hop off on you. Now, we've got no promises we're not going to put a carburetor on this guy, or at least rebuild what she's got. But the only way to find out is to get this part done. Okay, she's on pretty substantially now. She's not going to go anywhere. So now we'll put the short line onto the carburetor. This is just a return line, so we can cut her pretty short. So we'll go right there, and we'll reach inside the tank and give it a cut. Now I'll go from the other side of the primer bulb to the carburetor. And then the primer bulb just clicks in from there. There we go. And she's on nice and sturdy. So we'll tuck our lines in. And that's that. Now we'll put the air filter back on, put a little fuel in it, and see if she wants to start. We need to put the linkage back on, of course. Put the choke back on. And the only reason we're putting the choke back on now, because we have a feeling we're going to be pulling her apart again for carburetor, but I want to put the choke back on because you can't know if she's going to start without the choke. There we go. And remember, never push really hard. If you're pushing really hard, that means it's not lined up right. And that's true of everything you do with these little engines. Okay, I'm going to put her on the floor and put some gas in her and see what we've got. Okay, we pulled the string out, and because it looked pretty good, After taking a look at the inside of the recoil, we just pulled the string out just a touch and tied a new knot in it. And it appears to be working correctly. So let's see if she'll start. Okay, let's give her a run and see what we've got. Now, I took a moment to put new fuel in it and go over it real quick. I gave it a rough guess at tuning it. So let's find out. Oh, that's promising. I think that just became my chainsaw. I don't know if I want to sell that one. Okay, that's all done. Let's go ahead and put her lid back on and call this one finished. I'm going to have to, oh, by the way, I'm kicking this forward. That's the chain brake. You want the chain brake to be in the forward position whenever you take this cover off or put it on, or it gets in the way of the cover. Or the cover gets in the way of it. Whatever it is, something gets in the way of the other. And that's about it for him. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. I'm going to have to give some serious thought to this one before I let her go. I think I may want this to be my new chainsaw, and I'll sell the one I call mine now. Yes, I definitely love the way that thing sounds. Okay, that went pretty well. Now, fuel lines on a chainsaw are definitely not a great place to start if you've never done fuel lines before. If you do decide to do it, then that pointed out a pretty good way to do it. Look up a diagram for your particular chainsaw. You can find them online that show where the fuel lines go, because they run from the fuel filter to the carburetor, and then from the carburetor to the primer, and then from the primer exiting back into the tank. And the line going back into the tank is just a dead end. So you want to leave about yay much tail, just so it doesn't pull back through or anything. I've never seen one pull back through, but I always feel more comfortable if I leave a little bit of a tail on it. And so far, nobody's ever come back and said that one pulled out. So that works. I do appreciate you watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. See you next time.